The planet Valara 7 floated like a jewel in the quiet part of the galaxy. Its skies were silver blue and the air shimmered with crystal dust that caught the sunlight. The Valarans who lived there were gentle and peaceful. They spent their lives studying stars, building music towers, and learning harmony between light and sound. No one on Valara 7 had ever held a weapon. They didn't even have a word for war in their old songs. That peace ended the day the Kraul arrived. The Kraul were not like anything the Valarans had seen before. They were a swarm of dark ships that moved like living shadows. When they came, they didn't talk or trade. They only attacked. They tore through the Valaran defense satellites as if they were paper, and the once clear skies turned black with fire. Cities fell, crystal towers cracked, and the songs of harmony turned into cries for help. In a final desperate act, the Valaran High Council sent a distress signal into the stars. They didn't know who would hear it or if anyone even would. Their signal was simple and full of fear. To any who can hear us, please help. Weeks passed. Their signal traveled across countless light years. On Valara 7, hope was fading. Many believed that the galaxy was too cruel to care. The Kraul had already wiped out half the planet. Smoke rose over what was once their capital. Families hid underground, their hearts trembling with every distant explosion. Then one night the sky changed. The stars themselves seemed to move. Dozens of metallic shapes appeared in orbit, descending fast through the clouds. The Valarans thought it was the Kraul returning for the final strike. Panic swept through the underground shelters. Mothers held their children close, and the council ordered everyone to stay hidden. But the ships that broke through the clouds were different. They were smaller, rougher, covered with marks of repair and age. And on their sides was a symbol, a blue sphere with white streaks crossing it. It was not the mark of any known empire. It was the mark of Earth. The Valarans watched through their scanners as the ships landed in the burned fields near the ruins of the capital. Their scanners picked up strange signals, voices, commands, and sounds of machines being built. Out of the ships stepped beings in gray armor, moving with confidence and speed. Their bodies were heavier than the Valarans, their faces strong and scarred. They moved like creatures who had lived their whole lives fighting to survive. The Valarans whispered the new word they heard in translation: humans. The leader of the humans was a woman named Commander Sarah Holt. Her hair was tied back under her helmet, and her eyes were cold and sharp like glass. She stood on the broken ground looking up at the half-ruined towers, then spoke through her radio calmly. "Let's get to work. We've got a planet to save." The Valarans were surprised. These strangers didn't ask for payment or bow to the council. They didn't talk about politics or trade agreements. They simply began to help. Human soldiers built barriers, repaired power systems, and set up medical shelters for the injured Valarans. Where the Valarans saw ruins, the humans saw a base to rebuild. Renthil, a young Velaran scientist, couldn't stay away. His curiosity was stronger than his fear. He followed the humans around, studying how they worked. He saw a human engineer lift a steel beam twice his weight, grunting but never giving up. He saw another walk through thick smoke without coughing, guiding survivors to safety. When he asked how they could stand such heat and pain, one of them laughed and said, "We come from a place where everything tries to kill you, friend. This is nothing." Renthil didn't understand. "Everything tries to kill you?" he repeated in confusion. The human nodded. "Our world is called Earth. It's a death world. The gravity's strong, the weather's wild, and the animals bite harder than machines. But it made us tough. We don't quit easy." The Velaran scientist was shocked. To him, such a world sounded like a nightmare. Yet these humans smiled while talking about it, as if surviving such danger was a badge of honor. That night, the Kraul returned. Hundreds of dark figures dropped from their ships into the ruined eastern district. Their claws cut through metal and their growls echoed through the streets. The Valarans hid underground once more, but the humans moved toward the attack. Commander Holt stood on a hill, watching the flames rise in the distance. Her voice came through the comms. "They think they're hunters. Let's remind them what prey looks like when it fights back." The humans fought like nothing the Valarans had ever seen. They used traps made from broken machines, explosives built from scrap, and drones that flew through smoke like glowing fireflies. The Kraul were stronger, faster, and larger, but the humans were smarter. They turned the ruins into a maze, forcing the Kraul into tight streets where their numbers meant nothing. Every time the Kraul charged, they found themselves ambushed from above or surrounded by flame. Renthil watched from a damaged observation dome, unable to believe what he was seeing. A single human squad held an entire avenue against dozens of Crawl. The humans shouted to each other, laughed even while fighting, and never retreated. It was as if pain didn't exist for them. It wasn't madness, it was willpower. After hours of battle, the Eastern District was silent again. The Crawl were gone. Smoke rose from the broken streets, and the humans walked through the ashes, checking for survivors. Commander Holt looked exhausted but calm. When Renthil approached her, his voice trembled. You defeated them, he said. Our armies couldn't do that. Holt wiped soot from her visor. We're not stronger than them, she said simply. We just don't give up. The Valaran scientist looked around at the tired soldiers. Some were wounded, some were limping, but all of them were still standing. They had saved a city that wasn't even theirs. That night, for the first time in months, Valara 7 slept in peace. Fires burned in the distance, but the sound of human machines echoed like music of hope. Renthil sat near one of the camps, watching a group of humans share food and stories around a small heater. One of them noticed him and handed him a cup of warm liquid. You look cold, buddy, the soldier said with a grin. This'll help. Renthil took the cup with both hands, his voice quiet. Why are you doing this? You don't even know us, the soldier shrugged. Because someone has to. When people cry for help, you don't just turn away. That's not how we were raised. Renthil stared at the soldier's face, burned and tired, yet full of warmth. It was strange. These creatures came from a violent world, yet their kindness was stronger than any weapon. Later that night, Commander Holt walked among the wounded Valarans and spoke softly to the local doctors, teaching them how to treat burns and shock. She didn't act like a conqueror or a hero. She acted like someone who had seen too much pain and refused to let it win again. When the High Council met her the next morning, they asked if she planned to stay long. Holt simply said, The Crawl will be back. They always come back, and when they do, we'll be ready. Her eyes were steady and cold, but her voice carried something deeper. Promise. The Valarans could feel it. These humans were different. They didn't talk about fear or surrender. They carried something invisible inside them, something the Valarans had never known before. It was the spirit of a world that had learned to fight storms and live among danger. As the sun rose over the broken towers of Valara 7, the humans stood watch, their weapons gleaming in the morning light. Renthil watched them and whispered to himself, They are not from heaven or hell, they are from earth, and maybe that's what hope looks like. For the first time in a long while, Valara 7 was not silent. The city hummed again with the sound of life and rebuilding. Somewhere deep in the stars, the signal that once begged for help had finally been answered. And the answer was not a savior from above, it was the Deathworlders from Earth, who came not to rule but to protect. The sky above Valara 7 glowed with a strange light as dawn rose over the smoking fields. The humans had been there for only a few weeks, but already their presence had changed everything. They had built strongholds from the ruins, turned crashed ships into defenses, and helped the Valarans believe again. For the first time since the invasion began, the people dared to walk under the open sky. But Commander Sarah Holt knew it wouldn't last. The Crawl were not finished. Their scouts had already tested the new human lines. Small attacks came every night, faster each time. Holt stood on the old city wall watching the horizon through her helmet visor. She could feel the storm coming. They'll come with everything this time, she whispered. Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Vega, nodded. Then we give them everything we've got. That morning, the warning sirens howled across the camps. The sky darkened as hundreds of crawl ships appeared, their black hulls glowing red in the atmosphere. The invasion had returned, stronger, angrier, determined to erase the world that dared to resist them. The Valarans watched in silence from shelters deep underground, but above them, the humans were already moving. Commander Holt stood before her troops. Her voice came through the comms, clear and steady. We didn't come here to run. Valara 7 called for help, and Earth answered. We fight for them today, and we fight for every soul who believes the galaxy still has light left in it. Hold the line. The human defenses came alive. Energy shields flickered to life. Cannons powered by salvaged reactors turned toward the sky, and ground troops took position across the ruins. Renthil, the Valaran scientist, watched from the command post. His hands shook as he listened to the human comms. They spoke with calm voices, even as the crawl fleet blotted out the sun. The first wave hit. Explosions tore through the ground as crawl drop pods slammed into the city. From each pod, dark figures emerged, snarling and firing glowing bolts. The humans met them head-on, the air filled with smoke, fire, and the deep echo of determination. A crawl warrior charged straight toward a group of human soldiers, towering over them. The humans didn't retreat. They used the ruins for cover, aimed together, and brought it down with a burst of coordinated fire. They moved like one body, fast, fearless, and full of purpose. Renthil could barely breathe as he watched. These, creatures from Earth, born from storms and chaos, fought like living legends. When one human fell, another took their place without hesitation. When their weapons overheated, they used the environment around them, rocks, debris, even broken walls, to fight back. Commander Holt moved through the battlefield herself. Her armor was scratched, her voice calm and clear as she gave orders. Team 3, seal the east flank. Team 5, protect the medics. Don't let them break the line. Her courage lit the comms like a beacon. Hours passed. The crawl pushed harder, sending wave after wave. But every time they tried to break through, they were met by something stronger than steel, the will of humanity. At the command post, Renthil worked beside human engineers. They used old Valaran energy cores to power the shield systems. He saw their hands blister from the heat, yet they kept working. Why don't they stop? He asked in disbelief. A young engineer, face streaked with sweat, smiled faintly. Because if we stop, people die. That's reason enough. By midday, the battle had spread across the whole city. Smoke turned, the sky dark, and lightning from the crawl cannons cracked through the air. The Valaran shelters shook, but still, the humans held their ground. Every street became a wall, every ruin a fortress. Then, something unexpected happened. The crawl flagship began to descend. It was enormous, large enough to shadow the whole capital. The humans looked up as its guns began to charge. Holt knew what that meant. If it fired, the city, and everyone in it, would vanish in an instant. "Target that ship," she shouted. But their weapons were too small to reach it. The crawl flagship was shielded, untouchable by standard weapons. Holt's eyes hardened. She made a decision. "Prepare the carrier Resolute," she ordered. "We're taking it up." Her officers froze. "Ma'am, if you launch, you won't come back," Vega warned. Holt looked at him and smiled softly. "Someone has to make sure they don't fire, and someone has to live to tell them why we did it." Renthil heard the message over the open channel. He ran to the landing zone, trying to stop her. "Commander, please. There must be another way." She turned to him, her expression calm. "Renthil, your people deserve to see another sunrise. That's enough for me." He couldn't find words. His voice broke as he said, "You're not even Valaran. Why do you care so much?" Holt placed a hand on his shoulder. "Because we know what it's like to lose everything, and we promised ourselves we wouldn't let that happen again." The human carrier rose from the ruins, engines roaring. Its damaged hull gleamed faintly as it climbed toward the crawl flagship. From the ground, every human and Valaran looked up, watching the small ship rise against the endless darkness. The crawl flagship opened fire, but Holt kept going, dodging through debris and flames. Inside the carrier, her remaining crew worked without fear. Vega's voice came through the radio. "It's been an honor, Commander." "Same here," she said quietly. "Let's finish this." The carrier's engines flared brighter than the sun. It slammed directly into the crawl flagship's core. For a brief second, the sky turned white. Then a massive explosion lit up the heavens, painting the clouds gold and red. The shockwave spread across the planet, shaking the very air. Renthil fell to his knees, staring at the light. She did it," he whispered. Tears filled his eyes, not from sorrow, but from awe. The crawl ships began to break formation. Their command lost, they retreated into the blackness of space, leaving behind the world they could not conquer. Hours later, silence fell over Valaris 7. The fires burned low and the sky cleared again. The humans who survived gathered in the ruins, tending to their wounded and helping the Valarans come out from their shelters. There was no cheering, no celebration, only quiet relief. Rentil walked through the camps, searching. He stopped near a fallen piece of metal bearing the name Resolute. He touched it gently. "You were right," he whispered. "You didn't just fight. You gave us something to live for." When the High Council came out to thank the survivors, one human captain stepped forward. His voice was soft but steady. "We don't ask for thanks. Just remember what happened here. When darkness comes, call for Earth will come." The Velerans rebuilt their city slowly. They made new songs not just of peace but of courage. They told stories of the humans who came from a world where life itself was a battle, yet they fought not to conquer, but to protect. They called them Deathworlders, not as an insult, but as a title of honor. Years later, when travelers from distant systems visited Valara 7, they always asked about the day the Deathworlders came. And the elders would smile and say, "They came from a planet of storms, from a place where even the air fights you. But they brought with them the one thing the galaxy had forgotten: hope." The story of the humans spread across the stars. Some feared them, some admired them. But one truth became clear to all. When the Deathworlders answer a call for help, they do not come as gods or monsters. They come as people who refuse to let others fall. And so across the galaxy, in times of despair when people whispered to the stars for aid, one phrase became known everywhere: "Call Earth. The Deathworlders will come."